Deafened here.
Ready.
Hey,
Oh,
you
I'm
guys
so
ready?
ready. Yeah, I'm so totally ready. We were actually just saying how ready we were.
Yeah, we were.
Well, that is impeccable timing on my part then.
Oh man, how you doing, Danny?
Considering I'm doing all right. I'm doing all
That's
right.
good.
All right, hello and welcome to Next to Nothing, the show where we talk about how to waste your time and not your money in gaming. I am your host, Danny K. With me, as always, my wonderful, beautiful partner in crime, Ren Dishions.
Hi, that's me. I'm ready. Hello. What's happening, guys?
Ren, how are you doing today?
I'm so tired, but I'm good. I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And with us, our guest filling in for Mr. American Riot, SoWasWeiEinFan, aka
Hello.
Fan.
Fourth time, baby. Let's go.
Fan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. There's a festival going on, so I'm hoping that no marching bands or cannons will interrupt my audio feed. Also, here's hoping that there are no power outages this time.
Yes. About what time is it in Germany right now?
Well, 2-3 a.m.
Oh, that's
AM.
just in time to bring in the marching band. Let's go.
So just like kind of
man.
at the top here, last week I said American Riot was going to be our guest. He is fortunately unable to make it because he had a child. His wife.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
His wife went into labor. If it wasn't Tuesday, it was Wednesday. So I'm like, I should probably get a fill in real quick. So, Fan, big thank you to you for coming in and filling in. You actually approached me before I even sent a message because you're really excited about today.
The whole loot box thing that we will talk about later in the show came up, and I was like, this is the perfect topic. I want some platform to discuss this. And if I can come on, then at least you have that topic then.
Yeah. That's
then it just kind of happened that I'm here. But I said earlier to you that I would always be ready if you need someone. So
yeah.
Man of my word.
So real quick, Fan, you've been on the show before, but why don't you tell anyone who might not be familiar with you what you do, where people can find it, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I recorded a bunch of podcasts for my YouTube channel, youtube.com/SoWasWeiEinFan. If you can't spell that, just click on my name in chat and you can follow the panel links there. On Twitch, I'm currently making my way through Where the Water Tastes Like Wine because since the D drive died, the game wants me to restart, so I just restarted. But that's fine. That's fine. The game is good. I'll talk about the game a little bit later. But that's currently my whole streaming thing. I hope that I get this game finished before October starts because October is horror game season. And that means I can no-sell some horror games that are trying to scare me, but I'm not like... I don't scream at horror games. I'm like completely just deadpan analyzing them while I'm playing them. So if you're up for that, then check out my channel Run October.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's me currently.
So links will be in the description. I gave him a shout out in the Twitch chat. So if you guys are watching us live, check out that link. Go pop him a follow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts, any of the other podcast platforms that we're on, a link will be in the episode description for you guys to go give him a follow. So once again, big thank you for staying up so late, being
Always.
in Germany, and being
Thank
willing
you for
to
being in Germany.
No, that's not late because you're in Germany and willing to fill in. So we got a lot of shit to talk about this week.
Yes, let's get it.
I'm just gonna hand it over to Ren. Ren, you have played probably one of the biggest releases this year. You're what I would call almost a mega fan of the franchise.
Yeah, I'm pretty diehard about it. Yeah, so if people do not know what we're talking about, we're actually talking about Borderlands 3. And for those who also don't remember, I actually did a 12-hour subathon on Friday, I believe, just for my 2-year stream anniversary, and we actually played Borderlands 3 throughout the entire time. And I went for about 16 hours. I have 35 hours of playtime. I had to check just to be sure, but just over the course of like 3 or like maybe 4 days, I have 35 hours. It's a little bit ridiculous. So if that says anything, obviously I like the game. That being said, there's a lot of flaws. I'm gonna get into those. Like, there's a lot of flaws. Like, I'm not gonna say this is definitely a polished AAA experience, but just like off the top, when you think about Borderlands, you obviously think about guns. You think about the combat, and the combat is by far the best out of like the entire series, like by a landslide, no doubt. When it comes to like Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, a lot of the enemy scaling, if you could even call it scaling, is realistically just boosting up their health and shields up to like unrealistic values, where like when you get to Borderlands 2 endgame, it's pretty reasonable to hit like a couple million damage. Like that's a thing for like damage scaling reasons, just because the balancing isn't super great, so they kind of go with really fake ways of balancing the game. This one keeps everything in a lot more realistic like damage values, where like at maximum you're maybe hitting thousands. Like, it's not really anything super crazy, so like numbers are pretty easy to understand. There's 2 new elements, which is actually in replacement to a previous element that was in Borderlands 2 known as slag. So for those who don't really know about the Borderlands series, there's 3 mainstay elements. There's fire, there's shock, and then there's corrosive, and they're all essentially used for like flesh, shields, and armor in the degree. And then slag was meant as like a supportive status effect, where essentially all it does is it boosts damage that's going to that target. And really, in Borderlands 2, that actually made slag pretty much just a mainstay, like almost a requirement in endgame. Like, if you didn't have slag, you weren't doing something right, and you would struggle hard for it. Like, you'd be unbelievably punished for it. And in my opinion, I feel like that's really faulty game design. I feel like I shouldn't have to rely on one specific status effect to even make the game playable towards endgame. I'm already max level.
Most developers need to pick up the slag.
Yeah. So that's for Borderlands 2 specifically. Like, these are my gripes with Borderlands 2, and I'm kind of comparing the two. Scaling in Borderlands 2 was very fake. I always had a really big problem with it, and it was just, to me personally, it was frustrating that I couldn't choose a unique gun because it didn't have the proper status effect. And so it was like, okay, this gun's really cool, but it's not at all useful. Like, there's no way that I can use this effectively without like really going unbelievably hard into one really weird particular thing. But anyways, so I'm already max level in Borderlands 3 because 35 hours have played a lot. And so far, I don't feel the need to rely on these other 2 status effects, which is cryo, which is actually in pre-sequel, but it never made it into Borderlands 2. Essentially, you can slow and freeze enemies. It's really useful, like utility mechanic. And then there's radiation, which actually kind of acts as a lesser slag, where they still take increased damage, but it's not nearly to the degree of slag. And when you actually kill an enemy that's radiated, they explode. That's like the main mechanic. So it adds like a lot more unique flair to just like, oh, you paint them purple and then you kill them, which was just the way that slag was. So yeah, definitely really cool on that front. I'm already at endgame, and the endgame is actually really fun. Once you beat the game, just like in Borderlands 2, you have access to True Vault Hunter mode, but you also have access to another mode called Mayhem mode. And essentially what that is if you think of like Path of Exile or Diablo, it's kind of like Torment. It's kind of like the Torment levels, where it starts introducing more varied special mobs in a sense, where like maybe they have immunity to cryo, or maybe they teleport a lot and things like that. They'll shrink and then they'll grow. So like when they start chasing you, they'll turn into like a pixel that's just running across the ground, and you're just like, please don't catch me. I can barely hit you. I'm trying to mark it for my team, and like I'm just hitting the floor everywhere. And it's like really interesting in that regard. That's never been done when it comes to that game at all. But yeah, overall, super cool. It also gives you access to a lot higher quality loot pools, because Borderlands is a looter shooter. We all know this. We're all pretty well aware of it. On each Mayhem level, it actually increases all of the general loot quality by a certain percentage. So there's Mayhem 1, 2, and 3. And 1, I believe, is, I want to say about like 100% like bonus quality. So whites turn into greens, and then greens tend to turn into blues, and then so on and so forth. And then you can go up to Mayhem 3, which is the max, and spoiler alert, everything is murderous in Mayhem 3. You're going to die a lot. That's just how it is. But the loot quality goes up exponentially. Loot quality on Mayhem 3 is 500% better. Like, you're actively, when you're playing in that mode, you're essentially playing for legendaries. You're playing to go find that little loot midget that's running around, shoot him, kill him, and then get 6 legendaries off his corpse. And you're just like, well, I'm racking in the bank now. This is great. But yeah, that's essentially Mayhem mode. Mayhem mode also, so Mayhem mode is kind of separate than True Vault Hunter. True Vault Hunter is like an expanded playthrough, I guess. It's a higher difficulty playthrough. Mayhem mode is accessible on both. So if you have Mayhem mode on normal is different than Mayhem mode on True. So essentially, in the grand scheme of things, I guess you could say that you could look at it like it goes up to Mayhem 6, but not really. But yeah, overall, much better change. Previously, instead of having a like Mayhem mode or anything like that, after True Vault Hunter mode, they had UVHM, which is like the real endgame Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. And that's where Slag was heavily like hyper reliant. That's where like if you didn't have a Slag weapon, you were actively screwing everybody you were playing with. So yeah, I look at it as a change to, instead of using Ultimate Vault Hunter, they completely just scrapped it and used Mayhem mode. I love it. I think that's going to definitely be a much better mainstay than UVHM as a whole. And there's one thing that when I immediately started the game, you run into, just as like standard with Borderlands games, you kind of run into a tutorial boss in a sense. And in previous games, bosses are more health tanks with not really interesting mechanics. I guess like the most interesting mechanics of a boss in Borderlands 2 was maybe Captain Flint, where if he like did a certain thing, there were fire like grates in a sense, like across the arena, and they would occasionally just pop up and just fire off. And it's like, okay, those are pretty cool, I guess, but they're not really a hindrance. Like they're so blatantly obvious, and you're not going to be standing on them regardless. So it's not really like an obstacle. It's just sort of there as like aesthetic. In this one, however, a lot of boss fights, you're not really feeling like you're fighting just a health tank with a gun that's just going to decimate you. You're actually fighting the arena. So a good example is a character called Mouthpiece, who is one of the real bosses that you start up against. And essentially you fight in a like a sound booth in a sense. You're fighting in a giant sound booth. There's music playing because it's a sound booth. Like there's music going on. The way that he fights is he actually directs speakers that are all across the room to actually like go off. So the entire room is an obstacle, and you're essentially playing DDR in a room trying to kill a boss. That's the grand scheme of things. And I feel like that's really interesting. Yeah, exactly. It's definitely one of the most interesting things that they've done when it comes to like boss fights by far. And all of the boss fights are like that. It's not just this one. Even to the degree of like basic enemies having more unique fights. Like psychos in Borderlands 1 or 2 were literally just melee enemies that ran at you. That's it. There was no unique anything going on there. They occasionally threw weapons if they couldn't get to you. So if you're like standing on a rock and they have no way of pathing to you, they just start throwing their weapons at you. This one, they have lunging abilities. They'll try to dodge attacks to a degree. Like they're actually like, they're somewhat intelligent, which is definitely so much better than the previous Borderlands games, where every enemy sort of just feels the same. Like it's very easy to like the game, but then also just kind of lose interest after a bit. I played the game for 2 months on stream, and I can already tell you right now, after the first month, I was kind of done. Like I was like, okay, I get it. I get the loop, whatever. But all the fighting is interesting.
To that point, Borderlands 2 was the only one that I finished simply because Tiny Tina. That was the only reason.
Yeah. The fighting was super interesting. Like just throughout the game, boss fights were interesting. Just like general fighting was interesting. The gun sounds are phenomenal. Like the sound design is so good. It is absolutely amazing. And you're probably thinking I'm talking this up a lot, and I am, because I also have a vast amount of issues with this game. Like there's
Oh boy, here we
equally
go.
as many problems as there is good things. I feel like, first off, if you're a diehard Borderlands fan, chances are, one, you probably already picked up the game, so I'm sorry, but if you like it, great. But two, you're definitely like, if you haven't picked it up already, you're definitely thinking about it, like by far. Even like I while I am a diehard Borderlands fan, I was also really skeptical about the game. And gameplay wise, like the actual game itself, great. The story's a little bit meh. I'm not going to get into any spoilers or anything like that, but it feels very like it feels almost like a cash in, like, yeah, sure, this happened, whatever. You don't really feel necessary to the story. Like in Borderlands 2, you feel back. Yeah, in Borderlands 2, you feel it does have that feeling as well. We're like, oh look, there's Brick and there's Mordecai and there's like Lilith and everybody, and that's okay, I guess. But the game itself, like, I didn't feel necessary at all. Even at one point, and I know it's meant to be a joke, but Claptrap at one point says like, "Hey, if you die, we just have millions of other ones to go take your place." And it's like meant to be a joke, and obviously like it's a joke, but at the same time you kind of feel like that's true. You're just like, yeah, I'm probably not that necessary here. In Borderlands 2, you feel like you're helping out like all of the previous characters, whereas in this one you feel like you're just kind of doing tasks for them. You feel like you're just kind of like going about their mission. If anything, I would say like where Borderlands 1 it's kind of your story, and Borderlands 2 it's your story helping the previous characters, and Borderlands 3 it's not your story. It's not. It's specifically Lilith's story, one of the main characters in Borderlands 1 and 2. So yeah, that's my main issue. The main story is kind of whatever. I didn't really care about it, but then again, I'm more of a gameplay guy. I don't really care about the story anyway. It wasn't horrible. It just definitely wasn't good, and it definitely didn't live up to the standards that Borderlands 2 set, with Handsome Jack being definitely one of the best villains in gaming, just as a whole. The Calypso twins, which are like the main enemies, were just sort of there. It wasn't really like super interesting, even at a point, because like the main quest will kind of take you on like tangents, and for hours at a time, you'll just kind of like they won't show up. The Calypso twins won't be there. And Handsome Jack, what his big thing was, is he was always interacting with you throughout the entire game. So like from start to finish, he was at least interacting with you, trying to demean you, trying to like discourage you, sometimes even trying to encourage you just to like destroy you. And like it was really interesting in that regard. The Calypso twins are kind of just like, oh, you got the thing, we'll be back later. That they literally say that at a point, and I'm just like, what? Wait, what? Huh? Excuse me? But yeah, that was my issue. The story wasn't super great. I'm not gonna get into the ending, but I don't think it was super good, to be honest. But gameplay wise, fantastic. Everything about like the gameplay itself, I loved. Mm-hmm. Now we're at the real problems. Performance is horrible. It is absolutely atrocious. I have a high-end rig. A lot of people know this. I talk about it every now and then. But my specs should be able to run at least high at a full 60 FPS. I have to run it at low, and at low I get anywhere between 40 to 60, and that in itself is a pretty big issue. When you're in combat, the combat it like goes to about 40 FPS. It's a big struggle at that point. And that's with a high-end rig. Like that's with me investing a lot into it.
Yeah.
And for consoles, the game crashes, the game barely runs. Like trying to play split screen co-op is basically null and void on consoles. Mm-hmm. Like so many people run into issues with that, and that's where a lot of like the actual player base lies in Borderlands. Is like tends to be couples or like brothers playing in like split screen co-op, couch co-op, just like that. And so seeing that being a real issue really is like, that's really frustrating to me, because I feel like the game would have been absolutely phenomenal, even possibly getting Game of the Year this year, if it was polished. Like if it was an actual polished product versus what it is right now, which is, it's great when it's not being a complete mess. Like when it's not struggling, it's fantastic. I've experienced so many audio bugs, gameplay bugs, crashes, things like that. And that's with a high-end rig that should be able to just brute force right through it and not have any real struggles. So
I have
as
heard
somebody
horror
that's
stories about like cloud saves completely
Yes.
deleting themselves.
Yeah, a couple of people have lost their cloud saves, completely
Oh,
losing all of their
jeez.
detail, like all of their save information on it. And I heard that and I was flabbergasted because like, how does that happen? I kind of get it. Like I could almost understand how that happens, but at the same time, there needs to be like there had to have been better structure there for a game that you know is going to be your biggest release on your launcher to like
And
make sure that there's no problems there.
yeah, and what is supposed to bring back Gearbox from the dead.
Yeah.
You said bugs. I'm just kind of curious, real quick. Like, what kind of are they? Just like slight visual glitches and bugs, like something. Or is it like things do not render properly? Things fall through the map and disappear. Objectives don't, work. You can't interact with like this thing that
Ren
you
is
have to
about to
interact
say
with.
all of the above.
So it's funny that you say that because I literally experienced every one of those things, every single one, from like the tiny thing where like there's a mild audio hiccup, whatever, I don't really care, and then all the way to I'm playing in a side mission and I'm playing with a friend, and then like I'm literally walking around. I'm not doing anything that like would seem weird or anything like that. I'm walking around shooting bad guys, and then out of nowhere I'm teleported out of the map, completely out of the map, falling from the sky all the way to the floor, watching the map, just watching the entire like map box all the way for about 5 minutes. I'm falling. I can't access really anything. I could if I wanted to. Like I could pause the game and I could just try to restart from there. But I'm like, no, let's see where this goes. So 5 minutes goes by. I hit the bottom of the map. My character freezes up. I can't access my inventory. I can't do anything like that. All of my weapons have disappeared. And for those who don't know, there is Twitch integration. So chat can actually see all of my inventory. They can see everything I have. And they're just like, hey, your entire inventory is gone. And I'm just sitting over here like, what?
Wow.
What? Whoa, hold on. So
remember the
yeah.
last 2 hours of work? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here like, you gotta be kidding me. At this point, I was genuinely like thinking about refunding the game. Granted, this was during my subathon, so we were at about 16 hours in, and this happened, and I'm exhausted, and I'm just like, I'm gonna murder this game right now. Like, I cannot believe this just happened. So when it comes to Borderlands games, at least for me personally, since I've played a lot of them, I kind of know how to like fix most of the bugs. Like you can tend to fix a lot of bugs by just entering to a new area and then coming back. A lot of bugs can be fixed that way. So the friend that was playing with me entered into a new area and my character didn't come back. He was still frozen, still underground at the spawn door, like at the starting door to the new area, just kind of watching. And that was basically it. And I'm just sitting here like, you gotta be kidding me. I thought all my progress was gone. I ended up restarting the game and it worked. Like I had all my stuff back. I lost that mission, which was about like 30 minutes of game time, but still very terrifying. Yeah. Like for anybody that's played the game and they're just like, oh, I put in 16 hours and it's all gone. Like I would have lost my mind if that happened.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, that's definitely the most like brutal one I've had. I've had crashes here and there. I've had moments in like certain areas of the map where like audio is dead. Like all audio in that location is dead. Like it's completely gone. Maybe you'll hear one character out of 5 talking, and that's it. And it's not just for me, because I've been playing this entire game with up to 4 people, and everybody runs into weird glitches everywhere. But they're all different. Like half the time, like maybe me and one other person are stuck in a car and we can't get out until they break. And then like another person's like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep playing, but my audio's gone. And like, it's really weird like that. And I can't recommend this game in the way that it is right now. I really can't. As good as it is, I just cannot recommend purchasing it as of like an instant release. It feels so not polished where it really can't, like, they feel they feel like they should have easily been fixed in QA testing. That's how it felt. It felt like there was no QA testing at all. The first third of the game for me personally was perfect. And so I was thinking, oh wow, this is great. Everything's going fine. I was having weird like FPS hiccups, but I was like, okay, that'll be fixed in an optimization patch. That happens fairly frequently for like new release games nowadays.
Yeah.
Whatever. But with the sheer amount of bugs that hit like the second third of the game onward, I was kind of just like, you gotta be kidding me right now. Like this, what happened? It felt like the first third was actually done, and then like every other part was just not ready yet. That was just how it felt. I'm trying to think of some other bugs that happen. Main ones. Oh, so after we beat the game, we entered into True Vault Hunter mode, and we purposely, since we already beat the game, didn't really matter, we tried to speedrun it in a sense where we were trying to like actively break the game to like go faster. And I noticed there were a lot of things that like in previous Borderlands games wouldn't have worked like at all. But it felt like they didn't even consider checking it for certain things. So, for example, there's a moment where, like, there's a cutscene where Lilith gets attacked by two people, and whatever. I parked my car right next to it, and in this one, you can actually fast travel to your car. Super cool. Don't get me wrong. But I parked my car right there. The gate's supposed to close, and you're supposed to go, like, around this entire trip. So, immediately after the gate closed, immediately after like the cutscene ended, I literally teleported to the car and got to Lilith. It took me like 5 seconds. And I was like, okay, great. That worked so much better than I expected. And shit like that.
That's
like I would have expected
amazing.
the entire area to have been cleared of like entities. But I was like, nah, let's keep the car in. And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. I was sitting at a gate while we were like trying to enter into a new area, and the level that it pulled up was level text. Certain enemies lost their names and just had numbers as their names. So like they had their level as well as just a number, just a random number. Like a couple enemies were just 42, and I was like, what is happening? So yeah, you can definitely break the game. If you want to, you could easily break the game.
Yeah.
For a while, I had like 6 different people talking at once while there was no like combat audio in the background, but like Reese and Reese were all talking over each other in like past and future tense. And it was like, what is happening right now?
It sounds like a work meeting.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what is going on? It feels like somebody is just listening to their own audio recordings for fun. And yeah,
And
I don't know.
looping it.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of the game itself, like it in the actual game, it's good. I love it. Like I genuinely love it. But in terms of everything else, I can't recommend it. It's really difficult to recommend. And that sucks because like I love the game and I would love to be able to like, yes, by all means, play it. I would not touch it if you're on anything less than the rig I have, and my rig is struggling. So I would definitely wait. I think it easily has potential. It's not like a Fallout 76 story where like the foundation is inherently flawed. Like everything in its core is broken. It just feels like they missed the polishing stage. That's what it really feels like. Like it feels like the game was rushed too early, which is entirely likely, and just didn't get to like the real QA testing at all, like in the slightest. So
I can totally see Epic being like, this is a big seller, so it needs to be done at this date, and they didn't get it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, exactly. And they announced the release date really early on. So if they needed to change it and they're on Epic's timeline, they're kind of stuck with it. Like there's not really a whole lot you're going to be able to like convince Epic with like, yeah, we need another month. And they're probably going to be like, no, I paid you good money. You're doing it today.
Yeah, especially because Epic has a timed exclusive. I think it's supposed to come to Steam in 2020, April 2020.
Yeah. I think exactly a year was the time difference.
So they're like, I could imagine Epic being like, no, you are on very much borrowed time. This needs to go out now, kind of situation.
Yeah, exactly.
You're mentioning your rig. I just want the official requirements, specifications that they say. So for minimum, the official minimum requirements is obviously a computer, the operating system being a Windows 7, 8, or 10. The processor being an AMD FX 8350 or an Intel i5 3570 with 6 gigs of RAM. The recommended graphics card is an AMD Radeon HD 7970, an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 680 with 2 gigs of RAM and 75 gigs of hard drive space. The official recommended requirements: operating system Windows 7, 8, or 10. Sorry, Linux or Mac users. Processor AMD Ryzen 5 2600 or an Intel i7 4770. The memory being 16 gigs of RAM. The recommended graphics card AMD Radeon RX 590 or an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 with 6 gigs of RAM with 75 gigs hard drive space are the official recommended requirements to run the game.
And it should be noted that I'm past the recommended. Like, I'm above the recommended, and I still have to play the game on low. Like, I have to play the game on low to maintain a semi-decent frame rate. And that's, to me personally, like, granted, I love the game, but that is so out of care. Like, that's not... How can you release that game in a AAA state like that?
Like on stream or...
On stream and off stream, yes.
Okay.
I completely missed this part, but it should be noted. So the game runs in standard at DirectX 11. That's kind of its standard DirectX version. And then they have DirectX 12 beta version. I don't know why. It's the dumbest thing. But part of me really thinks that they accidentally swapped them in the menu. Like, they're wrong. Because DirectX 12 genuinely runs at double the FPS for me. It runs at double the FPS. I'm able to actually maintain consistent frame rates on the beta version. But in the standard actual real build, it barely runs. And I don't get it. Like, I genuinely feel like they just messed up and just swapped them. So DirectX 11 is actually DirectX 12 and DirectX 12 is DirectX 11 because it does not make any amount of sense to me. The downside, if you have the game and you're just like, I'm experiencing weird frame rate issues, that's definitely a fix. But the downside is on your first load of the game, because it actually is DirectX 12, feels bad. It's reloading in all the textures, it's reloading in everything, and it's trying to get it prepared at the start of the game on your first launch. For me, I genuinely thought I broke the game because there's this load screen after the starting like publisher and all that. Like, there's this little load screen of Claptrap, and he goes at 3 FPS for about 10 minutes on your first load after putting it on DirectX 12. Because it's trying to load in everything. Yeah. It's trying to like load in and cache everything. And I genuinely thought I broke it because I was like, oh God, is this ever gonna end? Is he frozen? At one point he's just like standing there in a weird dance pose. You're just like, I think it's busted. And he just moves across the screen. It's like, okay, never mind. All right.
It actually gets fun for the game, doesn't it?
But yeah. If you have the game and you're experiencing weird FPS issues on PC, that's definitely a potential fix. They call it a beta, and I'm going to be dead honest, I've experienced less issues with the beta DirectX 12 than I have with the standard stable build of DirectX 11. I don't get it at all.
That is bizarre.
It's so bizarre. I do not understand. But yeah. At $60, there's no way in hell I can recommend this as like buying it now. In a month, I could definitely see this being a lot more stabilized. Just because optimization patches tend to come out in the first week or two, and I really hope it comes out soon because that's definitely one of the big things killing it. Like, by far, I could easily see this game getting Game of the Year if it was polished on release.
I hope it doesn't. I don't think it deserves it with a launch like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh no,
I feel like
this,
Game of the Year needs to like be finished when it comes out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that like if it was polished on release, I could easily see this being a prime contender for Game of the Year.
It will
but
definitely
the state it's in right now, it's just not.
It will definitely be nominated. I can guarantee you that, but I hope it doesn't win.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else on Borderlands 3? Any questions or thoughts that you want to get out there, guys?
How much
I
Tiny
think
Tina's in the game?
shockingly enough, there's not a whole lot. I was kind of surprised. I'm not gonna get into spoilers, but she's part of the story in this one. So yeah, but not as much as I would like. She's not nearly into it enough. But yeah,
Cool.
otherwise gameplay's so good.
Anything else?
No,
I
that
think
covers it
that's
for me.
me.
Cool.
Personally, I would recommend waiting until it comes out everywhere else. But take that with a grain of salt because I'm firmly anti-Epic. So just to make that bias clear.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we're going to do some lightning stories before we get on to probably one of the other biggest stories, maybe of the year.
Definitely of the year.
Definitely of the year. So real quick, just because I love Insurgency Sandstorm, they put out a new content update. They introduced a new map, a new game mode. I believe they introduced a new weapon, but I haven't had my hands on it. And really, new weapons don't matter that much in Insurgency Sandstorm because it's hyper realistic. So all the guns, really, the difference is what's the recoil on it and what sound does it make. Because bullets are bullets, and bullets will hit you and kill you despite size.
Yeah.
As bullets tend to do.
As bullets tend to do. So with this content update, we got a new quotation marks map. It is actually a redesign of a much beloved, much hated map in the original Sandstorm. Or I'm not sorry, in the original Insurgency called Sinjar. The original Sinjar was a desert map. You if you're playing in push mode, you had to climb up this giant ass hill while dodging sniper fire, rockets, and machine gun chatter all the way up the hill, and then you would kind of slowly get into more urban areas. People hated the map because of just how asymmetrical it was. I mean, defenders were up on a hill, looking down on the attackers, and the attackers had very little cover. So part of the redesign for this version, they call it Hillside, is it's a snow-focused map. So it's got snow, and everything is kind of bright and not very deserty, which is very nice because every single map in Insurgency Sandstorm has been desert towns. There's more props, and they move the points in the objectives to different parts of the map. They did add a new game mode called I have it here, Tug of War, but that's not what it's called. It's called Frontline, which is basically a tug of war. You fight over a point. If you take that point, you can move on to the next point, and then the next point. Mm-hmm. But you have to have the points in your control to keep going to the next objectives. So you kind of
it's almost like a linear conquest, in a sense.
I guess conquest. I'm not sure which game you mean.
Like in the Borderlands series. There's different points that you can actually capture and essentially hold them, and they act as respawn points, for example. And I'm just imagining it in the sense of like an actual linear thing, where you're essentially just capturing each one in a line.
Well, that is so. There's a game mode that's kind of the main game mode for Insurgency that's called Push, where it's like you take a point and then you move on to the next point, and then you move on to the next point. This is you two fight over a neutral point, and then if you take the neutral point, your team gets to go on to the next point. But the other team can defend that point and then go capture what was the neutral point and then start taking. So you're kind of doing like this tug of war where you have to control 2 points at once in order to move forward. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's different than the straight linear. Okay, I gotta run to this point and just keep dying, hoping that I can take this point and get more waves. It's more okay. I gotta take this point and I gotta hold this point for a little bit, while my teammates go do once I take this point, I got to go quickly blitz across the other side before the other team can regroup and defend that other point. So it's fun. It's enjoyable. That's really all I got in the Insurgency Sandstorm update. It's not a very big update. They did a UI overhaul, which looks good. And it actually shows how many people are in a particular game mode, which is nice. So yeah, that's that. I forgot to make topics for this one here real quick, but another news story that we got for the week. Discord Nitro is
Oh yeah.
which we talked about a year ago.
Hmm.
They're discontinuing their free game subscription perk. So if you were part of the Nitro program, you could play some free games through it.
Hmm.
They just kind of decided not enough people were using it. It's not really worth making all these agreements for free games
Yeah.
for Nitro users if they weren't playing them. But Discord is still going to offer games on their storefront, which I myself I don't even accidentally get in there.
Hmm.
Which good on Discord for designing their UI to such a point that I don't accidentally enter a store, but I think that says a lot when I don't accidentally look at their storefront.
I've never seen that storefront in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say I've actually used the Discord games before because I remember at one point I ended up playing Hob, I believe, through Discord. It was okay, I guess. It wasn't anything special at all. Um, it existed. I'll give it that. I don't know. It was very whatever. In the grand scheme of things, it just gave you an EXE, and that was it. And it was like, yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
There you go. It wasn't like an actual launcher by any means.
Yeah. Which I will say, it's just nice that, as we are currently in this war between Epic and Valve, which to me, that's kind of the whole point. There's not really, it's kind of like voting. They say you have choices, but it's like, well, you got like you have two choices between two giant,
Yeah.
monsters. So it's nice to see other options available to you, whether it's GOG or Discord or, other retailers. It's nice to see that there are smaller groups like that out there.
Definitely. I'm definitely not surprised that this Nitro thing failed because we're having so many good subscription models. And like no one has multiple subscriptions running because either you have like the one you need or you grab like the one that's the best value and then you stick with that. Like at the moment, I think Xbox Game Pass is still the best one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that and you grab maybe the free games from Epic or like GOG sometimes,
Yeah.
just throw something out. Humble Bundle sometimes gives you free games. If you want free games, there are ways to get them. You don't need this Discord Nitro thing on top of that.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely not surprised to see that fall flat on its face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is my part of the lightning round. Fan, you said you had some things you wanted to do a quick little thing on, and then we'll move on to probably one of the biggest stories we have of the year.
So for those that don't know me, I usually stay far away from the AAA stuff because that's not worth my time and money. I usually stick with the indie stuff. I said in the introduction that I'm currently streaming Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, which is a game about storytelling set in the Great Depression, where you're wandering through America. The whole game has like an Americana art style and a fantastic soundtrack. And yeah, basically I had to start over again. So all the streams that I made before were kind of worthless, but at the same time, that gave me the option to actually choose like different paths, because when you're encountering a story, usually you get to choose like 2 different ways to respond to a situation, and those change the story. So this gave me the opportunity to see how that actually works. To give an example, one of the stories was that 2 people in the streams recognize each other as brothers that have not seen each other for like 30 plus years. And you can either take a picture of them or say that they should get off the road first. In the first playthrough, I just took the picture and then I had the story of like the brothers that saw each other after 30 years. And that was like a heartwarming story to tell. Whereas now I said, come on, let's get off the road. And while we were moving off the road, one of the guys said a name, and then the other was like, I'm not Ethan. And then, then it became like the people who mistook each other for brothers. Now it's a funny story, and the stories are like categorized this way. And you then move on to campfires where you can tell those stories. and they level up to become even exaggerated versions of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good time, and all those people at the campfires are impressively voiced and all have a lot of character, and they tell you their life stories as well, which you can also tell to other people. And if you get their entire life story, they basically, like, you get to see what their, like, a reflection of what their personality is like, instead of just seeing them sit at a campfire, which sometimes looks really cool. Kind of weird that they still have a normal voice when they look like that, but it's just a little incentive to keep going with uncovering their stories, and I think it's cool. The whole game is really nicely designed. I would wish that the overworld, which is the part where I do most of the gameplay, would not be as buggy. But that was clearly not the focus of that game. Then I played Mechanica, which is a short little point-and-click game. It's like $4 on Steam. So it's a really small game. It has an adorable art style that looks like someone drew the world with crayons or something. But the stuff that happens in this game is kind of disturbing, actually. You play as a little girl who gets detention, basically, for riding on the bathroom stall, which is the very first quest that you have to do in the game, just to teach you the mechanics of how the inventory works and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
To go over those real quick, that there are just two mechanics really to the game. One is in the backpack you can use stuff either to get other stuff in the world or to build the robot, which is the actual goal of the game. The little girl wants to build a giant robot to overtake the world and destroy the school and everything that's not cool. Or you can drink alcohol, which gives you hints. That's like the first little hint that something is not quite right with this girl. And then at one point you meet the daughter of the butcher, who is holding like satanistic rituals in the back room, and you have to get the machine working again in a really cool puzzle. And when you do, then you see like all those cute animals on like a conveyor belt just getting thrown into the shredder while looking happily at the camera. The stuff that happens in the game is really disturbing. At one point, your grandpa dies. Yeah, it's a cute little game. I will definitely recommend it if you like point-and-click adventure games. That's a good one. That's not too expensive and a really good time. Doesn't have voice acting though.
Cool.
And the third game that I played was I actually have to look up the name again.
That memorable, huh?
Let's say the gameplay was memorable, but the name, this is like the fourth time that I forgot the name. Guns of Icarus Online.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that's a good name for the game. Basically, it's like the steampunk airship multiplayer game where you are like the crew of an airship, and everyone needs to actually walk around the airship to do your stuff. You can either fly the thing, which is what I want to do. That's like the only reason I installed the game, was like I get to fly an airship.
Yeah.
Then you can be gunners who monitor the weapons on the ship to shoot down the other airships, with the core goal of the gameplay, I guess. Or you are a mechanic who runs around, constantly fixes everything. It's incredibly stressful. I definitely don't want to play that tutorial again. I was like, in the tutorial, I got so stressed out. It was amazing. Gunner tutorial was easy as balls, and then I tried flying for the first time, and it's basically by WASD, where you fly like left, right, and then you either with W you go up, and with S you go down, and then you have to control the speed with a different thing, which has like 4 gears forward or backwards.
Yeah, I think Guns of Icarus Online it's PvE, right? It's a companion game to the.
No, it's just PvP.
PvP.
They added a PvE later on.
Okay.
Yeah, but I haven't checked that out yet. I basically just went through the tutorials and unlocked all the stuff so I can jump into the actual multiplayer, but I haven't gotten around to that yet.
Okay.
Okay,
But
gotcha.
mainly the class that I like to play is the guy that flies the thing. Although when I first I made like, I think it's a common beginner mistake that I think that W is forward, and so I'm constantly like flying up and then just completely losing orientation of where I am and have to fly down again.
Yeah.
That's like the common thing I mean. But I definitely think if I play that tutorial 2 more times, I have that in. A bit unintuitive at first, but it's not that hard.
Yeah.
And that's where I stand with that game. It's definitely a good time. I think that the airship designs look amazing.
Yeah, that's when somebody, I want to say McRayla, bought this was years ago before I even thought about streaming. She bought a 4-pack for me, another friend, and so like 4 of us actually played the game together. I think I ended up being the captain or like the pilot for the most part. But yeah, it's incredibly, it's fun, you know, when you get like into a Discord and you're yelling at each other. It's like, starboard, starboard! We need a machine gun above.
Yeah,
It makes you.
I'm still missing out on that experience. If you can get the guys together again, I would love to play with you.
Yeah, we'll make some plans for that for sure.
Yeah, I saw a lot of customization options. I haven't had time to check those out yet.
Yeah, and
just to get those in there quickly.
Yeah, and we started kind of getting into like a little bit of like trolley build. It's like, okay, we're just gonna build a ship that has nothing but flamethrowers on it, and it has a lot of health. So we would get in.
Just ram them.
Exactly. We just like ram them and like try to set as much shit on fire. We would just like type to our teammates on the team. It's like, hey, listen, we're like a suicide build. You guys just take care of what you need to take care of. We'll go in and just troll this shit. It worked a couple times.
There's that one airship that's just like literally just a sphere, and it's really slow moving forward, but it can turn really quickly.
Yeah.
If you put flamethrowers around that and just turn yourself the entire time while having the flamethrowers on, I think that could be funny.
Yeah, it lends itself. There's a whole meta to it, I remember, but I haven't played in years. So I'm looking at the clock here, and we definitely need to get in on this.
Yes, I was done anyway.
So this here is, like I said, probably one of the biggest news topics we'll talk about here for this year. So just like kind of, if anyone hasn't heard yet, we talked a little while ago about some EA executives who had to go and give some testimony at the UK Parliament. This was a part of the investigation by the UK Parliament's Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee, the DCMS, as I'm going to refer to it now, because Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee is a mouthful. So the DCMS has now concluded their investigation that was initially a part of. And they recommended that loot box sales to children should be banned in the UK. It additionally stated that the government should regulate loot boxes under its gambling laws, with the committee chair, Damian Collins, stating it was time for the gaming and social media companies to be more responsible and challenge the government's current stance that loot boxes aren't gambling. As we've talked before in the past, current regulations hinge on cash out requirements, meaning that if there isn't a way for you to get monetary value out of a loot box system, then it isn't gambling. Of course, people can point to things such as Valve's CSGO as a way that this is obviously not it. I don't know about FIFA, because FIFA is another one of the big ones that people talk about. If you can't get cash out for that. So that's
you can cash out, but you can basically sell the players that you got on like their marketplace for gold.
Yeah. So there's that. That was one big thing. It also recommended that the games industry take responsibility for protecting players against potential harms and support independent research on the quote long-term effects of gaming. They also said that the government should advise PEGI to apply existing gambling content labels and age limits to games that feature these mechanics, which we talked about 2 weeks ago with Scott from not Scott from Budget Arcade. I'm sorry, from Jeff from Budget Arcade, in term related to the NBA 2K situation. And then Collins went on to verbally smack down the entire game industry.
Yeah.
I know you said you wanted to read some of these quotes, and I think it's just fair that we read these quotes and we'll each just kind of give a response to these quotes.
Okay, so do you want me to go on the article first, or do you want me to go straight into the responses?
Well, I have quotes from the chair of the committee. Do you want me to do those quotes real quick?
Yes.
Okay, so this is from Damian Collins. He was the chair of the committee. He said, quote, "Gaming contributes to a global industry that generates billions in revenue. It is unacceptable that some companies with millions of users and children among them should be so ill-equipped to talk to us about the potential harm of their products." And what he's referring to at that point was that a lot of the gaming companies, such as EA, were kind of tight-lipped and glib about what they know. In how they make their, how they make their money and how big of a problem they thought this was. So they didn't know how many of their users were children. They didn't know, how many, they were just very tight-lipped about how anything worked. It's like, well, we don't
and
really.
The best part of that thing is that they are calling out Carrie Hopkins specifically.
Yeah.
Who is the woman that made surprise mechanics into the meme that it is now.
Yeah, so she was the woman she was the EA exec or lawyer, or who, I don't remember exactly what her position is at EA, who went to Parliament.
Was a spokesperson?
Yeah. So she was the EA representative that spoke in front of Parliament, and she said that loot boxes aren't gambling, they're surprise mechanics, they're like Kinder eggs.
They're quite ethical and quite fun.
Yes, they're ethical and fun. And so, yeah, that's interesting that he, made very direct comments to that. He also said gaming companies have, quote, "not sufficiently accepted responsibility for either understanding or preventing this harm." And then said, quote, "Gaming is several years behind gambling in relation to protecting the vulnerable." Being very clear in saying that, I'm not sure in the UK, but here in the US, casinos, saying that casinos and lotteries, they have to do PSAs and say, good losers don't sell their children into slavery to feed their gambling addiction, there's help, call this number. I don't know what the UK says, but it sounds like they want stuff like that to happen for gaming. This is probably one of the biggest moves we've seen a government make in this space. Belgium was just like, that's gambling. We're calling it gambling. It's done. We did an investigation. We did the research. The gaming companies we spoke to were unable to or unwilling to provide us information. This is what our own officials have said. This is what we, the elected officials, the elected representatives of our constituents, say needs to happen. And that is that we need to classify this as gambling. And these are the reasons why.
They also had a lot of testimonials in there. It's also important to point that out because that's going to be important for the response that I have here.
Yeah, and so it wasn't very long until we saw responses from some of the major bodies in the games industry.
Yeah. Let's start with the A, shall we? So, if you want to play at home, raise one finger whenever you call bullshit on a sentence. Yeah. All right, here we go. This is a statement towards gamesindustry.biz by an unnamed Electronic Arts spokesperson. Quote, "We have reviewed and are closely considering the findings of the DCMS committee report. While we don't agree with all of the conclusions and recommendations in the report, we do take our responsibilities to players of all ages very seriously. We have an ongoing commitment to player safety and well-being whenever they are playing our games or engaging in our communities. We will continue to look at how we can contribute to productive research and solutions for the topics raised in this report, and we look forward to continuing our ongoing dialogue with the UK government. That's what EA said.
So
How far did you count?
I got 4. So the last one is just on. No one ever looks forward to talking to the government.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Golly, that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
Parliament? Yeah.
Oh god, I got summoned for jury duty. I am looking forward to that. Oh, I gotta go change my address for the DMV. That sounds like so much fun. Yeah. No one looks forward to
I gotta talk to Parliament and look forward about me losing lots of money. Oh, golly gee, my favorite.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
It's like
golly.
Christmas and New Year's on one day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
So we do take our responsibilities to players of all ages very seriously. That the first
that's
part.
double bullshit. That's just.
If you did,
why is there a game that literally has a slot machine that's rated PEGI 3?
Mm-hmm.
And why did you not worry about that being a part of your rating? Why did you say? Why did you, the company, not say, hey, we have like this mechanic in here. The previous games were rated this. We think it should be rated this for the safety of, and for just what is correct. We have an ongoing commitment to player safety and well-being whenever they are playing our games or engaging in our communities.
That's just a lie.
The safety and well-being, the well-being part I have a problem with, because we can argue on whether something is gambling or not based on the idea that it is, is there a cash out, right? I think that's where a lot of people, or, if it's simulated. The well-being part, something simulated can still be harmful. But the more bigger part of the issue here is that this is not fake currency being put into a fake system and getting a fake reward, like a Pokemon Game Corner. This is real money being spent on digital items. And so the well-being there has to be, you have to look at it from a psychological perspective in which there is an actual risk reward there that can financially harm somebody. And if you are ignoring that potential for harm, then that statement to me is bullshit. Again, I think a big part of this discussion is not about if it's simulated gambling or not. It is about the fact that real currency is being used in these systems. It doesn't matter to me if there is a cash out and if we want to define that as gambling or not. The fact remains real currency is being used in a risk reward system that simulates the psychological underpinnings of gambling.
Yeah.
We don't have to legally or technically define it as gambling, but the risk reward is there.
Yeah.
That's my big thing. Sorry, Ren, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was going to say even to the degree of literally, it's not a figurative, it's a literal actual slot machine, like mechanics and all that, like I remember hearing this on like something else where they said it wasn't gambling or simulated gambling at all. And all I thought was that quite like if I didn't know how to use a slot machine, like I literally used that one time and I know exactly what to do. Like it's not rocket science, don't get me wrong, but you literally see the thing get pulled down, you see the thing go, and then you see the thing, like it does everything that a slot machine does. I don't know. I saw that and I was like, you gotta be joking.
Yeah.
I also would like to point out that half of these sentences are twice as long as they need to be. So they are this statement is just as obtuse and evasive as they have been called out for in the initial report. So I don't see why you're not agreeing with all of the conclusions in the report, EA.
Yeah.
The other part of it here, we will continue to look at how we can contribute to productive research and solutions for the topics raised in this report, and we will look forward to continuing our ongoing dialogue. Okay, hold on. Sorry, that was a bit of a run-on sentence.
See? That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, it was 2 sentences there. There's 2 statements there what I meant to. We will continue to look at how we can contribute to productive research and solutions for the topics raised in this report.
I feel like that just means that we're looking for ways to get around it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all that comes to my mind.
Yeah, I'm being very jaded and cynical, and that's where I'm kind of at too. I'm like, okay, so you guys
I
are
mean,
going
we're
to...
talking about EA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's jaded and cynical if they clearly show like that's actively what they want. Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like that's just realistic at that point.
Yeah. So...
But wait, there's more, because the ESA also responded. So, same deal. Raise a finger for every time you call bullshit. So, here
They
is
just
the
have my hand
statement
up all
of
the
the
time.
ESA towards gamesindustry.biz as well. We take seriously the issues raised in the UK Parliament's Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee report, but strongly disagree with its findings. As demonstrated by the recent announcement of policies regarding the disclosure of the relative rarity or probability of obtaining virtual items in paid loot boxes, as well as the robust parental controls that empower parents to control in-game purchases. The video game industry is a leader in partnering with parents and players to create enjoyable video game experiences. That was all one sentence. In addition, numerous regulatory bodies around the world, including those in Australia, France, Ireland, Germany, and the UK, have come to a conclusion starkly different than that of this committee. That's what the ESA said.
Yeah. Hold on. So,
Woo!
as demonstrated by the recent announcement of policies regarding the disclosure of relative rarity or probability of attaining virtual items in paid loot boxes, as well as the robust, and in-game purchases.
I think
So,
we need to take those sentences out.
Yeah. So I just do want to respond real quick to something that was said in chat. It's not gambling because the government isn't currently taxing it. Once again, my issue is not that if it is or isn't gambling. My issue is that it is a system that is designed like gambling that does actually take money in and preys upon the same underpinnings of psychological underpinnings of risk versus reward, but actually does have monetary value attached to it. This isn't a Pokemon Game Corner. This is, I'm actually throwing money in for a random assortment of items that may or may not have value, and in certain cases may or may not have a way to actually cash out under the noses of the government, which at that point would be a legal casino of sorts. But yeah, this ESA one this just has so much to unpack.
Honestly, I think this one is worse.
In terms of like the disclosure, regarding the disclosure of relative rarity or probability of obtaining virtual items in paid loot boxes, as well as the robust parental controls that empowers parents to control in-game purchases.
Basically, they say we show the odds.
Yeah,
Also parental controls. Parental controls is always the cop-out these days, isn't it?
I mean, for me, I've said it before, parental controls are good tools. Part of the problem is that how effective the parental controls, and are you expected to, a phone screen is how big, and are you expected to be over your child's shoulder at every moment,
Right.
to prevent them from accidentally making a purchase? That's a huge thing to me. I think it's always a ridiculous notion and something that's always about, well, you should just parent. To me, what annoys me is I see a lot of people like, well, you should just parent your children, are also the same people who are like, stop being helicopter parents. You don't need to watch over your child.
Oh God.
It seems to come from the same people, and I'm not someone with a kid, but with someone who has a younger brother and sister who are, prime age to be targeted at. It's something that I'm like, if I'm watching my little brother and sister, I might have to be making, dinner, or I might have to be cleaning something, or I have to go take a cell phone call. And I'm not going to be watching my little brother as he's playing Clash of Clans and accidentally makes $300 in a purchase because the screen, didn't make it clear that that was actually a purchase. That is another part of the problem. But yeah, the whole the idea that you are, I'm sorry, I'm losing my words here. The idea that you are displaying the odds, okay, good. That's good for you. You should be doing that, especially if there's a monetary value to some, or not monetary value, but if you're putting money into something, you should know the odds of you getting the thing that you want.
Yeah.
Um,
If you allow me to quickly count the bullshit in this, we take seriously. No, you fucking don't. Also, we strongly disagree with its findings. So basically, like I said earlier, like I pointed out that there are testimonials in this report. Basically, they are saying right now, the ESA is saying that we don't like what those testimonials have to say. We disagree. That's grade A bullshit right there. Disclosure of relative rarity or probability. Yeah, you did that, but it's like that doesn't change anything. You still have like those things that have like less than 1%. So that's bullshit right there. Parental controls. Yeah, the industry is very quick to point out parental controls. EA does that a lot as well. But if a game needs parental controls, why is it still rated PEGI 3?
See, that's exactly my issue. Is like the PEGI rating and the ESRB rating are meant to protect children, right? Like that's the entire purpose. Because in the grand scheme of things, if you're an adult, who cares what game you play? You're doing what you want. But the literal entire purpose of those things is like, okay, ages 7 and up, ages 3 and up, and things like that. And when it comes to something like, oh, you can throw in money, but it's still rated 3 and up, like at that point, what's the point of having the rating system anymore? Like you're obviously not doing your job. You're not showing the information that needs to be. You even have the information on your page. Like I checked it recently, and PEGI 12 is simulated gambling. Like that's not even with cash in. That's just simulated gambling.
That is the Pokemon Game Corner.
Yeah.
You have
exactly.
You have a game corner. You're a PEGI 12.
Mario.
Yeah, exactly. And it really frustrates me because I actually had this entire conversation at length on one of my streams, and it really frustrates me because that's the literal entire purpose that they're there for, and they're not doing their job. So what? I'm supposed to just expect that they're maybe doing their job, and it's like it's a soccer game. And me as an adult, if I was like a parent during this age, and like I had kids, I'd probably be like, it's a soccer game. It's whatever. And then it's just like, oh, I need some money for something. Okay, sure, fine. Here's some money. Here's my card for a little bit. And then bam, like $100 are gone just because my kid was all like, I want to buy a lot of loot boxes. And like, I don't know. I find that unbelievably frustrating. And Granted, I know that's a little bit like...
Yeah, well, like I know like on Apple, it'll be like, it'll stop and be like, hey, you're about to make a purchase, you need to put in your password. And so if you have a device where you have those parental controls and whatever else, but I don't know what I myself do not know what the other stops like on PS4 or Xbox or Android are. I don't know if they will stop and say, hey, you're about to allow this company to withdraw or to make a charge on your credit card. Please put in your password to confirm that this is what you want to do, or put in like a parental PIN. I don't know what those stops are. Yeah. But those needs to be a situation. I mean, if there's not stops on like Microsoft, or like on the Xbox or on the Switch or the PS4, if there's nothing where it's like you need a parental PIN to complete this action, then that's something that needs to be addressed. And maybe there has to be redundancy. Maybe there has to be, okay, this game uses the Facebook as a lot of its API, right? If your kid plays this game and it's connected to Facebook, Facebook has to, and it wants to charge credit card that it goes through your Facebook account. Facebook is like, okay, I need a PIN. Those are the kinds of things that need to be probably addressed and examined. And 100%, I have failed to even look into that. I think I've mentioned it before where, some of these things need like 2 steps before, because as I've said, and someone else kind of disagreed with me, but I'm like, you can't expect everyone to be over the shoulder of their child at all points in time.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
think
Even if it's the case where you can, just because you can, it does not mean everybody else can as well.
Yeah.
Like,
I
that's
mean,
not
also, it's
feasible.
just like a lot of parents are just not as in the know about video games as we are, and
Mhm.
they just buy a game
Yeah.
and they see, oh, this is 3 and up, this is E for everyone. I can just give
Exactly.
this to my kid and don't worry about it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's I mean, to the further the point about the ESRB and Peggy. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
yeah, grandma is buying me this game. She looks at the age rating. Okay, cool. Grandma can buy
Yeah.
this game for Jimmy. Jimmy can play this game, not
Mhm.
knowing that there are, in-game purchases. You could also say the same thing about like if it's like it's like Splatoon and there's VoIP and the obviously the online interactions aren't rated, but the
Yeah.
online interactions are not the fault of the
Right.
are not the fault of the developer as the purchases are.
Yeah.
The one part here, in addition, numerous regulatory bodies around the world, including those in Australia, France, Ireland, Germany, they also say, and the UK, which is the country that is currently having the problem, who is reevaluating their stance on the issue. I found that a little weird. It's like you're saying that the UK has already determined this, but the UK is currently reevaluating their stance. Like that's not like a very strong. You guys have said it before in the past.
That sentence would have been number 5 on my bullshit list anyway, because some of those countries I know didn't differ starkly from that committee. Some of them were just not sure yet what to do about this, and were just launching stuff in the direction that the UK is doing right now. So this is just a cop out.
Yeah,
and then
well, I mean, what
last
is
one
Germany
that I
said?
wanted.
Out of curiosity, because you're a German, what has Germany said?
Yeah. So Germany is currently debating about it. Like we have like a specific, let's just say committee. It's not the proper word, but it's the best one I know right now. We do have like a ministry for that, and they are currently in debates with different person from the industry, right? And they're currently seeing if they need to do something about it. So it's not like we have a different stance on it. We are currently figuring out if it's a problem.
Yeah.
And then the last one I wanted to say as bullshit is games industry is a leader in partnering with parents and players to create enjoyable video game experiences. The game industry, especially in the AAA space, is a leader in like acting concerned after being exposed as like the manipulative pieces of shit that they are by making games actively worse to extort money out of players. So I'm coming to 6, and by EA I had 5. So ESA is worse for me.
Oh man.
Sorry,
just to get that straight.
So yeah, overall, I mean, this is good news for anyone who has wanted to see loot box regulation. My whole thing was, I think a lot we get into the weeds over what is the definition of gambling. To me, that doesn't matter. The definition of gambling does not matter because the practice is what is the problem. We cannot argue semantics when when semantics is not the problem. The problem is not
if
the
it's
definition.
gambling or not. That's not the problem. The problem is that it's manipulative tactics to try to extort money out of players.
Yeah,
like that's the purpose.
I see so many people get hung.
How you want.
And
but,
I see so many people get hung up on the semantics of the situation, and that is just. I mean, that's not the problem.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
Did you see the Peggy thing that happened earlier today in response to the NBA trailer? That's kind of related. It's not in response to the UK thing directly, but it's kind of related on the topic, so we can maybe like spend a minute on that. So basically, a lot of players asked them after the trailer came out to reevaluate the rating because of all the gambling that was in the trailer, right? It was basically a casino trailer. We all seen it. You probably talked at length about that. And basically, back then, Peggy said, "Yeah, we can't say that right now because we don't judge a trailer. We evaluate the actual game." So they waited until the game came out, and then the game came out, and today they issued a response. Yeah, no, the rating is absolutely fine. There is no simulated gaming in this whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I wonder if this is a problem with the semantics, right? Because, well, it's not simulated gambling. It's not technically real gambling, but the situation, right, which the simulated gambling being the in and out, being able to cash out. And I wonder if it's because you're putting real money in for digital goods out, right? So, and it's not fake money going in for fake money out. And it's not real money going in for real money going out. So I wonder if that's where it's not simulated gambling things come from.
I just think that it's because the PEGI is too deep knit with the actual AAA gaming industry.
I 100% agree.
I forgot the people that are in there, but I did see
because PEGI is rated by the ESA, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because ESA is it's held by the actual publishing.
Some of the people that are in there, I saw a spreadsheet once. Some of the people that are in there used to work at EA and Activision. And,
so it's basically like the FCC. Where
it's the self-regulation that the games industry was expected to do.
True.
That's what this is. So of course they're gonna say no. This is free. Because the people got a nice little check to say that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I talked about when I talked about this before, was the fact that the ESA is actually primarily held by the publishing. Like, it's held by the majority of publishers. And what do you think publishers want? Spoiler alert, it's money. So, like, obviously, it should not be like... I don't understand why they're in quality control over something like this. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like... obviously, the fact that self-regulation isn't working, and yet just going to the ESA and be like, "What do you think?" And it's like, "Well, it's fine. It's okay."
In terms of content, it's been fine. That's the thing. It's like in terms of actual content of like, you know, oh, this game has a lot of swearing. There's sexual innuendos. There's violence or whatever. This game probably isn't appropriate for anyone that's 18 and under. A parent wants to buy it. We obviously can't stop them, but this warning, rated M for mature, is here, right? It's been fine. Like, self-regulation in terms of content have been fine, but it seems as soon as Valve started this off with the, hey, we have these guns with rarity assigned to them. Pay $2.50 to get this gun, and hey, maybe you could resell it for $500. That's where it's like it just kind of went downhill from there. I by the way, I just slowly put the blame on Valve for this. Valve and Daddy Newell are not the patron saints of gaming that everyone wants to say.
They never were. It's just that they have a good launcher. That's it.
Yeah, and so. I kind of wish Steam was kind of getting the shit, the piss taken out of them in this situation as well, or Valve was. Unfortunately, EA, being the attention hogs that they are, very much seem to be in the limelight. They made the most egregious actions in these situations, and then they sent reps who said the dumbest and most egregious things.
Well. Warner Brothers Games is also a big one. Or Warner Brothers Interactive, one of the two.
Yeah. I mean, overall, like I said, my whole issue with my opinion has been on it, has been, these are obviously manipulative practices, and it seems like we're hung up on this semantic argument of what gambling is, and not focusing on what these mechanics prey on and how these mechanics operate. That is the issue. It is not, is it gambling or not? Because we can argue about cash in, cash out until our faces are blue. The issue is, and we have to stick to the issue, is how do these work? Which is they, make a risk reward system that is enticing, that people are willing to put money into, and is that an ethical way for them to make money? So, I mean, it's across every platform with every publisher in the industry, Nintendo, Valve, EA, Bethesda.
Yeah.
name it, throw a rock at a gaming industry, event, and you'll
I
hit.
would love to do that.
Don't actually throw a rock. This is a saying.
Don't do that. Yeah, no.
Don't actually throw a rock, but throw a rock at E3, and you'll hit a publisher who has a microtransaction system or a loot box system. It's just ubiquitous over the past 3 years, and their failure to self-regulate has brought this upon themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the huge issue really, I think, in our corner of this discussion, right? We're not the policymakers. We have to just get past the semantics of the issue.
Yeah.
So that's my big thing, like, because that seems to be an issue that we've had before. I've had before when talking to different people. It's it's not gambling because it's not cash out, but it's the system that's the problem. It's not the It's not the gambling that's the problem. It's the system.
Mm-hmm.
Down with the system.
So we're done with that. No more anarchists. No, I'm kidding.
Oh man.
Anything else on this? Anything else on this particular story at all?
No, we'll get stuck in this loop for hours.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do. We
I
always
mean,
get stuck.
I'm sure it's gonna come up later. At the end of the day, I'm really happy with the way this turns out. EA and ESA has been once again put in a position where they had to expose themselves as the slimy weasels that they are. And it's always great to see those guys grow. It's the best.
Yeah.
Ren, final thoughts from you on that?
No matter how this turns out, at least it puts it into the limelight. That's the way I see it. Is like, even if any of these fail, they've always been bringing it up more and more attention into the government. So regardless, I'm happy. I'm pretty stoked about it. That's basically my stance on it. Really, don't get me wrong. I'd obviously be excited if it went through. That it's like not allowed, but if it doesn't go off,
at least
then
for
at
the
least,
UK,
like, it's going to come up again. Yeah, at least it's going to come up again. It's going to.
If one country starts, the rest will follow eventually. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm not too worried about that. I think a good compromise would be if all those sports games have to be like 16 and up. I think that's like a realistic thing to shoot for, because at that point they are losing like a lot of their player base, and I think it would be worth it.
Cool. Anything else on this topic? I mean, I already put my thoughts out there. We good?
Yeah, I'm done for the sanctity of time.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's go on ahead and end the show. Fan, why don't you tell the folks out there where they can find you, what they're going to find, and any upcoming projects you want to talk about?
Since my name is so complicated, just click on it in chat and you will find my Twitch page and all the panels below. I'm going to hopefully finish with a Water Tastes Like Wine and then move on to the Horror Games Week for October, where I'm just going to probably put Twitter polls up again so you can actually decide what games I play. I did that last time and it worked pretty well, so why not? I have enough on my Steam page that I never played. We can get all of those out. Maybe after October I'll come on the show again and tell you what my horror game experiences were. We can do that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm doing a bunch of podcasts. I'm now the official editor for Baylor, who is on YouTube, but also currently streaming, twitch.tv/Baylor. That's the person that gives me money, so give her a follow. Other than that, follow my Twitter. It's the same name as I use everywhere else, because otherwise it would be way too complicated. If I do anything, I will link it on my Twitter. So if you want to follow one thing from me, follow my Twitter. @SoWasWeiEinFan.
Right on.
That's me. Done.
Cool. Ryan, what's coming up with your channel?
Yeah, so I'm gonna continue playing more Borderlands 3, even though I just gave it shit earlier today. But I still think it's really good. I'm gonna be playing it probably tonight. I'm probably gonna be starting up in maybe like half an hour or so. We'll see. That's basically it. You can find me at twitch.tv/renditions, 2 Z's, because I'm dumb. Can't spell my own name. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram stuff. I don't really mess around with anything but Twitch, let's be honest here. But yeah, that's basically me.
Cool. So my channel, not really much this week. For those who aren't in my Discord, I had a very sudden, unexpected death in the family. So I have a visitation tomorrow and a funeral Thursday, and I'll be kind of taking the rest of the week to decompress and unwind and The stress from that and the added stress from work have got me not really in the mood to do much streaming this week, so I'll be back next week. And kind of as a related note, anyone who might be wanting to listen on any of the podcast platforms, I'm not sure exactly when I'll get the podcast uploaded. I hope probably later tomorrow night. So yeah, but if you did miss any part of the podcast, you guys can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, and some of your other favorites, such as TuneIn or Swoot. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. And if we're not on your specific favorite podcast platform, like you're on some weird one, let me know. I'll love to get us up there for you so we can be in the place you want us to be. You can also watch the VOD here on my Twitch channel, or you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch it there on YouTube. You also can connect with us on Twitter at NTNPod. I've been putting out some Twitter polls, trying to get some ideas on what you guys want to hear us talk about. So go on over there and answer some of those. Of course, you guys can help the show grow by telling your friends, or you can leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. We love the ratings and reviews, and let us know what we do wrong and what we do well, and also let us know how beautiful Ren and Fan are. Until then, guys, we will talk to you later, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.